You always do this." The words slipped from her lips like an accusation, but her eyes stayed on the floor. "And you always let me," I answered before I could stop myself. Silence hung between us, heavier than the half-broken lamp in my hands. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not this late. Not in her apartment. Not close enough to notice the faint scent of coffee on her breath. I was only helping her fix the lamp she'd knocked over, something that should have taken 10 minutes. Instead, I found myself lingering, sitting on her living room floor, wires scattered, while she stood a step away in her robe, arms folded too tightly across her chest. She was in her mid-40s, sharp and careful in every way that made me feel like a boy caught sneaking in past curfew. But there was something softer underneath, something she tried to hide with clipped tones and half-smiles. "You're not even good at this," she said, gesturing at the lamp. I grinned despite the tension crawling in my throat. Maybe I just like excuses to come over. That made her glance at me. Quick, sharp, as though I'd said something I shouldn't. Maybe I had. The air felt too still. The room was dim except for the faint glow from the kitchen. A half-finished glass of wine sat on her table. She hadn't offered me any, just water in a mismatched mug. It felt deliberate, the distance she tried to keep. And yet, she hadn't asked me to leave. "You shouldn't say things like that," she murmured, softer now, her voice pulling back the edge it carried a moment ago. "Why not?" I said, too casually, though my pulse betrayed me. Her robe shifted as she leaned against the wall. I caught the briefest glimpse of skin at her collarbone before she pulled it tighter, and I looked away, pretending to fuss with the lamp. My hands shook. "It's inappropriate." Her tone was flat, but her grip on her robe wasn't. "Inappropriate," I repeated, testing the word like it belonged to someone else's mouth. "But not untrue." She let out a breath, half a laugh, half a warning. It lingered in the quiet. I remembered the first time we spoke more than just neighborly pleasantries. I'd been carrying groceries, and she'd stopped to hold the door. Her eyes had lingered a second too long, or maybe mine had. Since then, we'd crossed paths more than coincidence should allow. By the mailbox, outside the building. Once in the rain when she'd offered me her umbrella and walked home drenched herself. Those small moments stuck. They had no right to, but they did. And now, here we were. "You don't even know what you're saying," she whispered, but the whisper cracked. I set the lamp down, finally giving up the pretense of fixing it. "I know exactly what I'm saying." She shook her head, eyes hard on me now, though I could see the fight behind them. "You're too young for this. Too young for me." "And yet," I said quietly, "you let me in." Her lips parted, but no words came. Just the faintest tremor in her hand as she tightened her robe again. I stood, brushing dust from my jeans. We were too close now, inches that shouldn't have existed. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the push and pull tearing at her. Finally, she said it. The words I'd been waiting for, fearing, craving. "I shouldn't be doing this." I swallowed, pulse hammering in my ears. My voice came lower, steadier than I felt. "Neither should I." Her eyes flicked to mine, wide, searching. And in that suspended breath, she didn't move away. Her words still clung to the air. "I shouldn't be doing this. I should have laughed it off, made a joke, left her to her quiet apartment. That would have been the smart thing, the safe thing. But instead, I stayed, caught between the broken lamp on the floor and the way she refused to meet my eyes. "You don't get it?" she said after a long pause, her voice low, almost as if she were talking to herself. "I just ended something. 2 months ago. 10 years wasted. I don't—" She shook her head, forcing the words back down. "I don't want to repeat mistakes." The weight of her confession settled heavy between us. I hadn't expected her to give me that. Her private fracture, the truth she hid from the neighbors who still thought she had it all together. I could have told her that I understood. That being seen as the responsible one could eat at you, make you want to burn down the image just to feel human again. But I didn't. I wasn't sure if she wanted comfort or silence. So instead, I studied the way she clutched her robe, the way the fabric wrinkled under her hand. I noticed the thin scar near her wrist, faint but real, a mark of a life lived longer and harder than mine. I noticed how her wineglass hadn't been touched in nearly 20 minutes, though she kept glancing at it like it was supposed to solve something. "You think I don't know this is wrong?" I finally said, the words escaping before I could filter them. Her eyes snapped to me, sharp, defensive, but trembling at the edges. "Then why are you still here?" I swallowed. "Because you keep letting me in." For a second, neither of us moved. The clock in the kitchen ticked too loudly, a constant reminder that every second stretched this line we weren't supposed to cross. She let out a quiet laugh, humorless, shaking her head. "You're arrogant. Or maybe," I said softer now, "I just see something you don't want me to see." That landed. I saw it in the way her shoulders stiffened, in the sudden stillness of her breath. Vulnerability cracked through her guarded face for just a heartbeat, and I felt a dangerous kind of triumph, like standing at the edge of a cliff and leaning too far over. I wanted to tell her more. How I noticed the way she touched her necklace when she was nervous. How her voice softened when she said my name, even when she didn't mean to. How I thought about those details longer than I should. But I bit it back, because saying it aloud would ruin the fragile balance, tip us into something we couldn't undo. Her robe shifted as she moved closer, slow, tentative. She bent to pick up the lamp pieces beside me, but her hand brushed mine. Barely a feather touch. I froze, heat crawling up my arm where her fingers had grazed me. She didn't pull away. "Stay," she said suddenly, her voice breaking the silence, raw and uncertain. My chest tightened. The word meant more than it should have, and I didn't trust myself to answer without saying something I shouldn't. I stayed, not because I'd agreed aloud, but because I couldn't make my body move toward the door. Her voice had pinned me in place, soft but laced with something that felt like surrender. She cleared the table, pretending it was just about hospitality. But her movements were too precise, too careful, like she needed the task to hide behind. I sat on the couch, watching the faint tremor in her hands as she set the empty glass in the sink. I wanted to speak, say something to cut through the tension before it swallowed us both. Instead, the silence stretched, thick and unbearable, until she finally came back and sat on the arm of the chair across from me. Not beside me, not too far either. "Don't read into this," she said. "I just don't feel like being alone tonight." My throat tightened. I nodded, though my chest burned with words I couldn't risk. Then it happened. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, and her jaw clenched. Without answering, she flipped it face down. But not before I caught a glimpse. Daniel. The name meant nothing to me, yet everything in the way her lips pressed thin, the way she wouldn't look at me after. "Friend?" I asked, breaking the silence. Her laugh was short, bitter. Persistent one. I didn't know what to say, so I shifted on the couch, running my hand along the seam of the cushion. My pulse quickened at the thought of him still reaching for her, of her choosing not to answer. I had no right to feel it, but the jealousy was there, sharp and undeniable. "You don't have to explain," I said. She looked at me then, tired eyes catching mine. "But I wanted to." Her words left me raw. She didn't owe me an explanation, yet she'd given one. And that felt dangerously close to intimacy. I forced myself to lean back, to put distance in the space she kept blurring. "Maybe I should go," I muttered, though I didn't move. Her eyes searched me, like she was measuring the weight of my words. Then, slowly, she shook her head. "You always say that, and you never do." I swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong. Every time I told myself I'd walk away, something in her voice, her silence, her gaze, kept me anchored. My hand brushed against hers when I reached for the lamp again. Not accidental this time. I should have pulled back, but instead, my fingers lingered, catching the warmth of her skin. She didn't flinch. The air between us snapped tight, fragile. One wrong move and we'd fall into something we couldn't undo. Then, a knock at her door. Sharp, unexpected. Her head whipped toward it, breath-catching. My chest thudded like a hammer. Neither of us moved. And in that frozen moment, with our hands still touching, the question hung heavy in the silence. Were we about to cross the line? The knock faded, leaving only the thundering of my own heartbeat. She didn't move to answer the door. Neither did I. Whoever it was, they left after a second attempt, 2 sharp raps, then silence. But the moment lingered, heavy, as if that sound had forced us to see ourselves too clearly. Her hand slipped from mine, slow, reluctant, and she stood, pacing the edge of the room like a trapped animal. "You shouldn't still be here," she said, though her voice was weaker now, almost pleading. "I know." My throat was dry. "But you asked me to stay." She stopped pacing, turned. Her robe had loosened a little, the belt tied too hastily. Her hair had fallen out of its neat hold, stray strands curling near her cheeks. She looked nothing like the careful, composed woman I'd first noticed months ago. She looked raw, undone, and more real than ever. "You don't understand what you're doing to me," she whispered. The words hit harder than I expected. Not because of what they meant for her, but because they echoed what I couldn't admit out loud. She was undoing me, too. I rose slowly, closing the space between us until I was only a step away. "Then tell me," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. Her eyes locked on mine, sharp, wet with something unspoken. "You make me feel young, reckless, like I could forget everything that came before. And that terrifies me." I swallowed hard, every nerve in me screaming to reach for her, to close the gap. Instead, I let the words spill before I could stop them. "And you make me feel like I finally matter, like someone actually sees me." Her lips parted, trembling. Neither of us looked away. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was full, too full, charged with everything we weren't saying. Then, without warning, she laughed softly, bitterly. "This is insane. You're what? 22? You have no idea what you'd be throwing yourself into." "Maybe not," I said, stepping closer, voice low, steady, betraying nothing of my racing chest. "But I know what I'd regret more. Walking out that door tonight." Her breath hitched. I could see it. The war inside her, regret colliding with want, fear tangling with the undeniable pull between us. She raised her hand then, like she meant to push me away. Instead, her fingers brushed my jaw, feather-light, trembling. My eyes fluttered shut for just a second, betraying me, and when I opened them, hers were still there, searching, drowning, desperate. "You can't stay," she whispered, but her hand didn't move. "Do you want me to leave?" I asked. The question hung between us, heavier than the silence, heavier than the broken lamp still lying forgotten on the floor. Her lips parted, but no words came. Only a stare, raw, loaded, dangerous. And in that unfinished answer, everything shifted. Her hand was still on my face when the phone buzzed again. This time she didn't ignore it. She stepped back quickly, robe tightening around her as if she'd remembered herself. I stayed frozen where I was, pulse thundering, waiting for her to speak. She picked up the phone, stared at the screen, then turned it toward me. The name lit up again. Daniel. But what she said next hollowed me out. "He's not just my ex. He's my ex-husband." The word lodged in my chest. Husband. 10 years, she'd said earlier. Suddenly the scar, the half-drunk whine, the clipped laugh, everything sharpened into focus. I tried to steady my voice. "And he thinks that I'll go back," she finished for me, eyes darting to mine, as if daring me to judge her. "That I always go back." That I don't know how to be alone. Her honesty cut deeper than I expected. For a moment, I saw not the confident woman who had kept me at arm's length for months, but someone raw, worn down by years of being someone else's anchor. I don't think that, I said, too quickly, too sure. She tilted her head, searching me. No? Then what do you think? I hesitated. The truth was clawing its way up, reckless and dangerous. I could have lied, played it safe, told her she was strong, independent. But instead, the words fell out before I could stop them. I think I've been waiting for you to notice me. And now that you have, I don't know how to stop. Her lips parted, stunned. Not by the boldness, maybe, but by the clarity. She let out a shaky laugh, half disbelief, half something else. God, you're just a boy. I'm not, I said, sharper than I intended. You see me that way because it's easier. But I'm not. The silence after that was electric. She pressed the phone against her chest, as though shielding herself. I could see her breathing quicken, see her wrestle with something she didn't want to say. Then came the twist I hadn't braced for. Daniel knows you, she said softly. My stomach dropped. What? Her eyes finally met mine, steady, unflinching. He saw us once. By the mailboxes. He asked me if you were the reason I left. I told him no, but... She trailed off, voice breaking. I don't think he believed me. The room spun. The knock earlier, the persistence of his calls, it wasn't random. He was circling, suspecting, waiting for proof. You should have told me, I said, harsher than I meant. And what would that change? Her voice cracked now, desperate. Would you have stopped? Would I? I had no answer. My fists clenched, not in anger at her, but at the situation tightening around us. Finally, she stepped closer, close enough that I could feel her breath when she whispered, Tell me I'm not crazy for wanting this. The world stilled. My chest ached, and I realized she wasn't asking for permission. She was asking for absolution. Tell me I'm not crazy for wanting this. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. They held mine steady, daring me to run or to give in. For a second, all I could hear was the clock ticking in the kitchen, mocking the silence between us. My mouth went dry, but I forced the words out anyway. You're not crazy. Her shoulders sank, the faintest release of a weight she'd carried alone. Relief flickered across her face, but so did fear, like she knew what saying yes to me meant. I stepped forward, close enough to blur the space between us. But we have to stop pretending, I whispered. Stop circling each other, like it's not already happening. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, her hand found mine again, deliberate this time. Warm, trembling, alive. I hate that you make me feel this way, she said, almost laughing through her breath. Like I can't control myself. I squeezed her hand, firm, grounding. Then don't control it. Not with me. Her laugh caught in her throat, breaking into something softer, almost a sob. She leaned against me, her forehead brushing my chest, and I froze, then slowly let my arms fall around her. It wasn't perfect, wasn't clean. She clung too tightly, and I held her like I was afraid she'd slip away. For the first time, it didn't feel like a game or a test. Felt real, messy, dangerous. I'm scared, she whispered into my shirt. So am I admitted. The truth burned, but it felt like air too. Finally breathing. We stayed like that, pressed together in the half-dark, until the weight of everything unsaid became unbearable. I tilted her chin up, searching her eyes. If I say it, I murmured, I can't take it back. Her lips trembled. Then don't take it back. The kiss should have been reckless, rushed, inevitable. But it wasn't. It was slow, hesitant, like both of us were afraid of breaking something fragile. Her fingers curled into my shirt. My heart stuttered against my ribs. When we finally pulled apart, her eyes glistened, searching me for answers I didn't have. "This can't be simple," she whispered. "It won't be." "I don't want simple," I said, voice hoarse. "I just want this. You." A silence followed, not empty but full. Loaded. She brushed my jaw again, that same trembling touch that had undone me hours earlier. But this time there was no pulling back. She smiled faintly, sad and alive all at once. "Then I guess we stop lying to ourselves." The weight shifted. Something unspoken finally set down between us. Not erased, not solved, but claimed. For the first time there was no running, no pretending. Just the two of us, standing too close, knowing too much, holding on anyway. The room was quiet after the kiss. Not empty quiet. Like the air itself had shifted, like everything we had been circling finally landed. She pulled back first, not far, just enough to look at me. Her eyes were soft, but I could see the storm still flickering behind them. "So this is it," she murmured. "No more pretending." I nodded, swallowing the weight of it. No more pretending. It wasn't simple, and we both knew it. Daniel's name still glowed in the shadows of her apartment. The years between us still stretched wider than the space we closed tonight. But none of it mattered the same way anymore. For weeks, months, I had been the one lingering outside her door, fixing lamps that didn't need fixing, inventing reasons to see her. Now I didn't need excuses. She had let me in. Not just into her apartment, but into the fracture she had hidden from everyone else. And she saw me, not as the boy from across the hall, not as someone too young to know better, but as someone who mattered. We sat on the couch together, not speaking at first. Her head rested against my shoulder, tentative, as if testing whether the world would let her. I traced circles against her knuckles with my thumb, memorizing the shape of her hand in mine. "You realize this is going to be messy," she said at last. "Everything worth keeping is," I answered. She laughed quietly, shaking her head at me, but she didn't let go. Later, I helped her pick up the lamp pieces scattered on the floor. It felt symbolic somehow, gathering fragments, trying to make something whole again. She caught me smiling and rolled her eyes, but her lips curved anyway. "I don't need saving," she said suddenly, serious now. "I know," I told her. "But maybe you need someone who doesn't ask you to be perfect all the time." Her silence was answer enough. She leaned in, pressed her forehead against mine, and for the first time, I felt the tension ease. Not gone, but softened, turned into something we could carry together. When I finally left her apartment, the hallway felt different. Not colder, not lonelier, just changed. We hadn't promised forever. We hadn't erased the past. But we had chosen something fragile and real, and for now that was enough. I knew I'd knock on her door again tomorrow. And this time she wouldn't just let me in. She'd be waiting.